Okay, so welcome everybody to this presentation. We're going to be looking at making LabVIEW better. So adding the features that we want to the LabVIEW IDE in order to make us more productive. All of the slides, the demos, the code that I'm about to show, they're all on GitHub. There's going to be a link in the presentation that I've shared with Greg already so that he can circulate that so that you can start exploring them and you can start building your own tools to make LabVIEW better straight after this presentation. But of course, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So in return for that, I'd just like to take 2 slides just to talk a little bit about the company that I represent. So humor me, please. So I'm working at Conrad Technologies, founded by Michael Conrad over 30 years ago, headquartered in Radolfzell in Germany, near the very beautiful Lake Constance. If you've never been, highly recommend visiting. Beautiful part of the world. We've deployed around 3,500 systems globally. We have a worldwide presence, which I'll just talk about in a second. And we have over 300 engineers, many of whom are NI certified. And Michael is CEO and still day-to-day hands-on running of the business. We have sites in the UK, where I'm based. We have sites in India, China, Austria, and we also have a site in Farmington Hills in Michigan. We like to collect badges, so we've got 3 LabVIEW champions within group, a lot of LabVIEW architects, number of test stand architects, some embedded developers, and a number of professional instructors so that we can also offer training services to the customers that we work with. Who am I? Well, my name's Chris Roebuck. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Conrad Technologies based out of the UK. I'm a degree educated physicist and a LabVIEW evangelist, although some would say cheerleader, especially if you look at some of the pictures of me attending NI Week with my family, for example. My kids don't get to go on vacation, they get to go to NI Week or NI Connect. I also have published a number of tools myself to the LabVIEW Tools Network that are free tools. And the reason why I'm mentioning these is this presentation is about improving LabVIEW, and the tools that I've published, the free tools that I've published, are all aimed at improving the LabVIEW experience. And I'm going to show one of these as a demonstration a little bit later. So all of the example code and this presentation can be found at that bit.ly link, and I've also shared it with Greg. Hopefully he can circulate that to the people that attended after this presentation. There's also a related presentation from Darren Nattinger at NI. Darren is creator of QuickDrop, amongst other LabVIEW features, BI Analyzer, etc. Darren gave a very similar presentation at NI Week a few years ago about how you can build some of the features that you want in LabVIEW rather than waiting for NI R&D to build them for you. So where are we going to start with all of this? So the first thing is we need to identify an opportunity to add a feature to LabVIEW, something perhaps that is a repetitive task that we carry out regularly within LabVIEW that we maybe want to automate, something that's manual right now and we want to automate it. Or perhaps we have common tasks that involve several cumbersome steps and we just want to make them a little bit easier. Or maybe there's some pain points. Maybe there's something that we do in LabVIEW that we forget how we do it from time to time. Maybe it's a simple design pattern or a construct involving several nodes on a block diagram, and we often forget what did that look like? How were they connected? That could be considered a pain point, and we might want to find a way to reduce that pain point. Or we might plain want to add missing features or enhance existing features that exist within LabVIEW and make them better ourselves. So we've got a job to do, right? We need to define the problem. What is the thing that we want to do in LabVIEW? We need to implement a solution. So we need to use some kind of technique in order to automate that repetitive task. enhance that built-in feature or add that missing feature. And then we need to utilize hooks that exist within the LabVIEW environment already in order to integrate our new feature with LabVIEW. So actually, before I dive into the technicalities of how we do that, maybe let's talk about, what kind of things are we talking about? Well, actually, giving a demonstration is a great example of this. Um, you know, Often I find myself working on customer projects, working on various VIs for different customers. And maybe when I'm visiting one of the customers, or maybe when I'm giving a presentation such as this, I don't like the fact that LabVIEW keeps track of my recently opened files. There might be information in there that relates to a particular project, and I don't like that. I'd really like a feature in LabVIEW where I can just actually remove that information and hide it so that customers don't see that. Now, of course, I could set up a fresh VM for a presentation, but we don't always have time to do that. So an example of a feature where I wanted to add something that doesn't exist in LabVIEW was to actually add the ability to reset the recent files list. So I'm going to go ahead, and this feature was built by myself. It was added to the tools menu, and I'm going to go ahead and reset. I'm going to give a reason for why I'm resetting that menu. And the reason why I do that is because this particular tool allows me to recover those recent files at a later point in time. I'm going to go ahead and reset LabVIEW, and let's relaunch LabVIEW. And it's decided to hide itself behind there. But now we've got a clean LabVIEW getting started window that doesn't contain any potential confidential information about customers I might be working with, and you can see the recent files. So that's a very simple example of a feature that doesn't exist within LabVIEW. I could go and manually clean out the LabVIEW INI file, but that feature doesn't exist in LabVIEW. It's convenient for me to be able to add that feature to the tools menu and be able to reset the getting started window. So we've given an example there of something that we might want to do to make something quite convenient. It was a pain point for me previously. So we said we need to identify the problem that we're facing, the pain point, the repetitive task that we want to automate. We need to now implement that. And typically, how we're going to do that is through VI scripting. For those of you who've been around, I know there were some mentions of some pretty early LabVIEW versions. I think somebody mentioned LabVIEW 4, and certainly there were a few people mentioned LabVIEW 6. Since LabVIEW 7.1, we've had a feature in there. Originally, it was hidden and it required special INI tokens in order to launch it, but there's a feature in there called VI scripting. VI scripting allows us to write LabVIEW code that can manipulate LabVIEW code. So for example, it's a little bit like VI server. It allows us to deal with properties and methods on objects on the block diagram. So when we say properties, properties of wires, properties of nodes, properties of sub-VIs, for example, and it includes methods, things we can do. So for example, we can programmatically create wires. We can programmatically drop items onto the block diagram. We can programmatically tidy up block diagrams, add new objects, move objects. So VI scripting allows us to operate on objects on the block diagram, but also VIs themselves. It allows us to operate on the LabVIEW Project Explorer. It allows us to modify, add, and remove G-code from block diagrams, from the project, anywhere. So we can use VI scripting to actually automate some tasks that we would normally do manually on the LabVIEW block diagram or on the LabVIEW front panel. By default, it's deactivated. We need to go into the LabVIEW Tools Options menu, go to VI Server, and we can see we've got a section there called VI Scripting that needs to be selected. And when we relaunch LabVIEW, we'll have an additional palette. In the Application Control palette, we'll find a new sub-palette called VI Scripting. This contains some useful features, some useful VIs that allow us to navigate block diagrams, traverse or search block diagrams for particular items, and add new items to the block diagram. So we can start to interact, we can start to use LabVIEW to programmatically create and modify LabVIEW itself. Okay. So for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to assume that the task that I want to achieve is to color alternate structures, alternate nested structures on my block diagram for readability's sake. Now, I know it's a pretty noddy, contrived example, but for the purposes of this, I think it's pretty effective. So for the purposes of readability, I like to make alternating structures on my block diagram different colors so that I can easily see them and I can perhaps read my block diagram a little bit easier. So there's an example of what I want my final thing to look like. And here's the LabVIEW scripting code that allows me to do that. And what I'm simply doing is I'm obtaining a reference to the block diagram, and then recursively, I'm actually looking at all of the items on the block diagram and obtaining references to the different diagrams within each of the structures. And for odd items, so in fact, imagine I'm building a list of all of the different block diagrams. Each of these structures can be considered its own block diagram. So if I'm building a list of them, for odd items, I'm making them white, and for even numbered items, I'm making them dark gray. So this is the scripting code that if I run this code on a VI, will color my block diagram. So let's have a quick look at that to start with. So these are the all of this code, by the way, like as I mentioned, will be is already on GitHub, so you'll be able to explore this yourself. So let's open that VI and have a look at it. So not an awful lot of code. We're going to obtain. We've got a VI path. We're opening a reference to it, opening a reference to its block diagram, traversing that block diagram, looking for the different types of structures that might exist, such as multi-frame structures, loops, in-place element structures, and we are building a list of them and then coloring them appropriately. And this loop iterates recursively across the entire block diagram until we've analyzed every node on the block diagram. Okay, so let's see this in action. Let's be sure that this actually works. So I've created a demo VI. There's my demo VI. You can see number of structures, got a for loop, got an event structure, got a case structure. Yeah, it's broken code, but it'll do for this example. And I want to color it so that it's, in my eyes, slightly more readable. So I'm going to browse for the path of the VI that I want to color. Let's go find that one. So that's the path of it. I'm going to go ahead and run my code. And now when I open my demo VI, we can see the alternate structures have been colored. So as I mentioned, we need to identify that repetitive task, that pain point. This is a contrived example, I know, but for purposes of, we've got 30 minutes to get through. I picked a fairly simple example that I think is quite visual to show you what I'm trying to achieve. But this could be any task that you want to automate, and you can use VI scripting to do that. There's links in the presentation on how you can discover more about VI scripting and its capabilities. So let's go back to the slides for a second. So if you check out the LabVIEW wiki, there's an entire section on VI scripting that has literally got another dozen links where you can learn more about VI scripting. So there's also a video embedded in the slides. I won't do it, which is just replaying the example that I've just given, so you can remind yourself when you watch these slides at a later date what we were talking about. So the next thing is we need some hooks, and this is where we're going to cover lots of different places where we can place code, place automation tools, add tools to LabVIEW in order to be more productive and to reduce those pain points. The first one we're going to cover is something called a merge VI. Now, the nice thing about merge VIs is they don't require any scripting. That we've just talked a little bit about scripting. Actually, merge VIs, we're going to take a step back. They're even easier. All we need is some LabVIEW code that we want to reuse. So a merge VI, sometimes also called shell VIs, although I'm not particularly keen on that name. Merge VI seems more appropriate when you see what they do. A merge VI places the contents of a sub VI on the block diagram rather than the sub VI itself. So when we select a sub VI and we put it on the block diagram of a caller, rather than just having the sub VI with its connector pane, instead it actually places the content of that sub VI. These can be really useful for small or medium-sized template code that we use frequently, or simple design patterns, such as a simple state machine. Again, if we have some piece of code that we create quite often, but we forget how it was wired, how it was arranged, then it would be a good idea to create a merge VI with that code inside it so that we can drop that whenever we need to and increase code quality because we're facilitating the reuse of a proven piece of code. So that improves quality, reduces development time as well. One drawback is it requires editing of the LabVIEW palette using a tool called the Edit Palette Set dialog, which is very rarely used. Most LabVIEW developers have never used that particular feature within LabVIEW. So let's have a look. Oh, actually, let me stop that video for a second. Let's go and do that live. And let's go back to our example of a merge VI. So here I've got a template or the basic outline of a queued message handler. Now, I know there's a lot missing from that. It's not really a queued message handler, but it's two loops, an event structure, and a queue. It's my starting point, and I always forget that my event structure should go in my top loop, and I should have a queue. So how do I make sure that I always create the structure, the code in the same way? How can I make sure that new employees or contractors or third-party suppliers always create that code in the same way? Well, one way to do it is to create a merge VI. So how do we do that? Well, we take our sub VI, my QMH template that I've got there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to put it in this case, I'm going to put it in userlib. So userlib, for those of you who haven't used it, is a directory within the LabVIEW folder, and any code that I put in userlib is automatically added to the LabVIEW palette without me having to do anything. So I'm going to restart LabVIEW and I need some elevator music while LabVIEW's starting to keep everyone entertained. So there we go. If I have a look at create a new VI and go to user libraries, we can now see I've got a QMH template sub VI. But when I drop it, it drops the sub VI. That's not really what I wanted to achieve here. So let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go into that seldom used menu that I mentioned earlier called Edit Palette Set. So editing the palette set brings up this quite complex looking menu But we can see here, it's got a visual representation of the palette, it's got our user libraries palette, and it's got our QMH template VI. I now right click on that item. One of the options that I've got is to place VI contents. So I'm going to go ahead and select it and save those changes. And it's giving me a warning telling me I've edited the palette. I'm going to say, okay, I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to create a new VI. And I want to use my QMH template again. I'm going to go to user library, QMH. This time, when I drop it, I don't get the sub VI. I get the contents of the sub VI. So if I've got design patterns, simple pieces of code that I want to reuse rather than having to code them over and over again, a merge VI gives me a very simple technique for being able to use that code in other block diagrams. And of course, I can send that VI to other developers and they can take the same action and be able to reuse the same pieces of code, the same design patterns. So that's our first starting point for being able to reuse code, simplify potentially what might be a repetitive task, coding that over and over again. So let's close that for a second and return to our slides. So that's our merge VI. The next one we're going to talk about is quick drop shortcuts. Now, I can't really see online, but hopefully everybody is using quick drop. If this was an NI week presentation, I'd say let's have a quick show of hands. But hopefully I don't need to do that because we're all at LabVIEW user groups. We're all keen to improve. So hopefully we're all using quick drop. For those of you who aren't or don't know what quick drop is, very simply, quick drop allows us to, rather than navigate the palettes, something aware there, rather than navigate the palettes, we can simply select items based on their name. I, for one, always losing things on the palette, trying to remember where is the color box constant. It's moved like, I've been using LabVIEW since 1994. The color box constant's moved like 5 times. I swear, I can't find it. But I do know that it's called color box constant. So I can simply type in color in quick drop, and second item down is color box constant. Click enter. There's my color box constant. To invoke quick drop, it's control space. If you're on a Mac, it's control shift space. We can then simply start typing the name of the item that we want, index array, for example, click enter, and it puts the item down. However, quick drop allows us to insert additional code that is invoked when we hit a certain shortcut. Quick drop ships with a number of really convenient shortcuts already. For those of you who haven't seen some of them, my absolute favorite is remove and rewire. So if I stick down to an error in and an error out, let's stick something in between those two. Excuse the wiring. Now, historically in LabVIEW, if I went ahead and deleted that, I've now got a broken wire that I now need to either Control B to get rid of, or I've got to line up my wiring tool and do that. Well, turns out Quick Drop has a shortcut for doing that. So if I select the item, hit Control space Control R, Quick Drop removes the offending item and rewires the two nodes back together automatically. That works with any LabVIEW code where you have a wire being passed through a sub VI, through a property node, through a primitive, whatever it might be. Control space Control R will rewire that. But it turns out we can build our own plugins into Quick Drop as well as the ones that it ships with. So let's have a look. Quick Drop shortcuts allow us to specify a control key combination used whilst Quick Drop's active. So we launch Quick Drop with Control space. This is extremely useful if we've got a frequent or repetitive editor task. So we're on the front panel, or we're on the block diagram, and we want to do something just like I just did with remove and rewire. Well, perhaps I'd like to be able to color my alternate structures directly while I'm on the block diagram. I don't want to go to the tools menu like I did previously, or run a scripting VI. I actually want to be able to do that from the block diagram. Let's have a look how we can do that. Well, what we do is we start, as I mentioned, by the way, LabVIEW already ships with 10 shortcuts, but there's loads available actually on this website as well, ni.com/quickdrop, just in case, you might want to check that out first, just in case somebody's already written the shortcut that you're thinking of creating. So where do we start? We start with a template. LabVIEW ships with a quick drop plugin template. It's a VIT. Certainly it's a VIT since I think 2013. It's in LabVIEW resource dialog quick drop plugin template. We start with that as a template. We add the code that we want to that template, and then we put it in a particular location, and LabVIEW will make it available to us in future. There are two locations, as you can see there. One of them makes that quick drop plugin available to all LabVIEW versions on the machine. The other one makes it version specific. There's a video showing it, but I'm actually going to do a quick live demo. So let's find my quick drop plugin. So this time I've used the template. So this is the template that NI provide, and I've added my scripting VI that sets the alternate block diagram color that I showed you a few minutes ago. So this is the NI template. It already provides me with references to the VI that's launched quick drop, and I'm able to obtain its path with a property node and then just use my scripting code to do the tasks that I want. The only other slightly nuanced thing is that I have to add a comment to the documentation window telling it what the shortcut is. This is how QuickDrop knows what control key combination to use. Once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and copy that code. It's a bit sensitive today. Let's go ahead and copy that. And let's put it in LabVIEW resource dialog quick drop plugins. Let's close LabVIEW and restart it. This time, I don't have to run some special VI or something that I've done like I did earlier. This time I can just open my demo VI. Let's have a look at it. I can launch quick drop with Control Space, and then I can hit Control X. There you go. There's my block diagram colored in my. There's my block diagram colored. There's my repetitive task. That's much easier than manually colouring it, much easier than finding a VI and running it, telling it which VI I want to colour. I can just do Control Space, Control X. So that's another place where we can plug in our code to improve a process or a pain point. Another area where we can add our own tools is the tools menu. Tools menu allows us to have menu-driven access to the scripting VIs or the utilities that we've created. The nice thing about menu access is you don't actually have to have a VI open. With quick drop, I need to be on the block diagram or the front panel of an active VI in order to launch that plugin. With menu access, I can actually launch that from the getting started window. So the window, this particular window, this is known as the getting started window. And you see, oh, with my example that allowed me to reset or restore items, that can be launched without having a VI open. Okay, so that's a nice feature. Tools menu is also visible not only from the getting started window or the front panel or block diagram of a VI, but also from the project window as well. And we can have multiple items grouped under a parent item. So for example, under tools, we could have a Milwaukee LabVIEW user group and then a number of tools available to us. In order to do this, what we do is we take our scripting code, so in this case, our code that's setting the alternate black and white color, gray and white color for our block diagram, and we simply put that VI in LabVIEW project, in the LabVIEW project directory on disk. Slight difference is that we need some scripting code. Again, we need to write a little bit of code to detect the VI that launched the tools menu if the tool that we're actually building affects VIs. Now, obviously, my resetting of the recent files list, that didn't affect a VI, so I didn't need to do this. But if I, in the case of my alternating colors, I'm going to have to find out which VI is it that's launched the tools menu in order to then run that scripting code on that VI. So this is the code that we need. Okay, and it also requires that VI to be set to run when opened so that it runs the VI and executes the scripting code immediately. And we can do this for both the tools menu, the help menu, and the file menu. And there's a resource, another document here that can help you if that's something that you want to do. So let's have a look at doing that. So I want to put a Milwaukee LabVIEW user group set alternating block diagram into the tools menu. So I'm going to, I've got my set alternating block diagram colors scripting code here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and let's put that in the LabVIEW project directory. Just put it anywhere in there. There we go. Surprise, surprise, we have to start LabVIEW again. Most of these features require a LabVIEW restart in order to be able to take advantage of the new code.
I can't read it right now, but there's a comment from Darren Adiger in the chat. Can you read that?
Bear with me. Let's have a look. I have to stop sharing for a second just to read that out. Sorry. What's Darren say? Nice. So you don't have to restart LabVIEW after installing a quick drop control key shortcut plugin. So I guess every time quick drop launches, it looks in the plugins directory in the LabVIEW resource. Cool. So we've relaunched LabVIEW. So let's go ahead and open our code. This is the one that we want to set the alternating block diagram. So we've now got, under tools, we've now got a Milwaukee LabVIEW user group menu item, which we copied a folder in there. So we've now got an extra layer to this, an extra level to this menu structure. And we say set alternating block diagram color. And there we go. We've now set the alternating block diagram colors for our VI. So we've integrated that into the tools menu. So we've now got the same feature available to us in the tools menu, also available as a quick drop plugin, quick drop shortcut, sorry. We've also got another hook that is available to us, which is a right-click plugin. So right-click plugins allow us to provide context-sensitive editor actions for block diagram objects, front panel objects, and block diagram objects at runtime. What do we mean by context-sensitive editor actions? Well, we can actually detect with the framework that exists within LabVIEW for the right-click plugins, we can actually detect the item that was right-clicked. We can then present a menu or a list of options available to the user specific to the type of item that was right-clicked. And we can create our own plugins using a template. So again, NI have kindly provided us with a template that we can then customize in order to have a right-click option for that particular type of item that's been selected. So in the interest of time, but the code for this example exists, I'm going to show the right-click plugins in action. So here I've opened my LabVIEW block diagram, and is my video running? Oh, I stopped it. And we can see I've now got a right-click option when I click on the boundary of a structure to set alternating block diagram colors. The code for that looks at the type of item, the type of object that has been selected, and then presents an appropriate right-click menu for that particular object type. So that's another place where we can install additional features within LabVIEW. Finally, because I'm going to go through the last two a little bit quicker because I'm aware we are a little bit tight on time. So new projects from templates. So we started out talking about merge VIs and the ability to reuse code. New projects from template takes that a little bit further. It takes the ability to package a piece of pre-written code that meets some kind of design pattern, or maybe it's, like I say, a particular coding construct that we use frequently. Maybe it's not a full architecture such as QMH or a state machine, but maybe a construct that we use frequently. A new project from template allows us to start a new project from a particular known starting point where that code is taken from the template and already exists for us. So we're not starting with a blank VI anymore. We're starting from a known starting point of some pre-written code. And again, it helps us to enforce coding standards by prescribing the types of coding constructs, the design patterns that are used by others. And again, that could include suppliers or contractors that we have working with us. We could supply them with those templates and say, this is what I expect you to use as your starting point. But in addition, unlike the merge VI, which just placed the code on the block diagram, new project from template allows us to take a copy of that template and start a new project from that particular starting point. But what it also allows us to do is to programmatically customize that starting point by first getting some user input by means of a dialogue that we can customize to ask the user particular questions, ask them to set particular settings, and then carry out post copy scripting. So when we take a copy of that template and move it somewhere, we can actually then perform some scripting tasks on that piece of code in order to customize it for our particular use case. So it guides users through that customization process. And of course, we're the ones developing the template, so we can control what that customization process looks like. So you might be familiar with the new project template, new project from template wizard, whereby we can filter based on the type of project or the supplier of that project. So that, for example, JKI, Delacor, people like that, insert templates into these menus. So we can filter by the type or the supplier, and we can see that we've got different project templates available to us. When we select one of those, we're then presented with a customization dialog, if you will, to be able to give the project a name or modify its icon. But we have the ability, because of again, this being templatized, we can create our own project template and our own customization dialogues ourselves. Okay, so let's have a quick look at that. So if we have a look at project template, what we need to do is I should say as well, I've included resources, links to, Darren has a very good Nugget article on this. There's also a Christina Rogers blog post that I've linked as well, for being able to guide you through this process. Actually, Eli Kerry has a very good article on doing this as well. So there's plenty of resources to guide you through this. And of course, you could use this example code as a starting point. But what we can do is that one. What we can do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy those items. What we'll see, what we've got here is a template, which is some very simple LabVIEW code, and then what we call a spec page. The spec page is just the customization, the dialogue, this thing that appears to the user when we create a new template. So we provide one of those with the things that we want to customize to the user. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that into the LabVIEW directory. Let's go ahead and move those across. So I copy that one. Project templates. We put that one in the source. And it also has an XML file that defines where things like the icon that appears and the description that appears. The XML file just simply defines those items, and that goes in the metadata folder. And like I said, all of that is documented in those articles that I've linked. Now, when we launch LabVIEW, we should have a Milwaukee LabVIEW user group item available to us. Yep, there we go. And that's got the spec page that we defined a moment ago that you saw in order to customize the name of our project. Now, this is obviously a very simple example that we've got here. I've also got a more complex example of one that allows me to start a new project under Git source code control, and that has a much more complex spec page, which allows me to do things such as setting up a git ignore file for my new LabVIEW project, picking a particular workflow that I want to use with Git, specifying a remote where I want to push my Git code to, or even setting up commit hooks to run VI Analyzer or VI Tester test suites. So these spec pages, we are entirely at liberty to design our own to solve the problem that we're trying to solve. So that would be the new project template. And as I said, we've got a bunch of resources here to help you guide you through the process of creating your own. So we've got a lot of places that we can hook into in order to build the tooling that we want. Darren's going to hate me for this one, so actually I'm also aware that I'm running out of time. Project Provider is extremely scary and potentially dangerous, and every time I present on project providers, he tells me no, they're bad and evil, but they can be really cool as well. So I'm not going to dive into this. It's all included in the slides, and we've got some demo code in here if you want to build your own project provider. But what a project provider is another hook, another location whereby we can add functionality to LabVIEW in the LabVIEW project itself. So in this particular case, I want to be able to create a bookmark. So typically how we would create a bookmark is we would add a free label and we would type hashtag and then a piece of text that we wanted to become the bookmark. But that involves opening the VI that I actually want to add the bookmark to. And what happens if I want to add that same bookmark to multiple VIs? And what happens if I've got bookmarks that I use frequently? So what I did is I created a project provider that allows me to right click on an item in the LabVIEW Project Explorer, select bookmark and add bookmark to this VI. And here I've got a tool where I can actually start typing, or I can select one of these predefined bookmarks. So let's add a to-do to my VI, and I can hit Control Enter and add that. Now when I look at my VI, it's added a bookmark to it. But I want to be able to right click on that bookmark and edit it again. So to-do, so I can edit the bookmark by right clicking it. So I've used a right click plugin. I've used a project provider to do that, but I also want to be able to launch it from quick drop. So I do Control Space, Control M, and there's my ability to add another bookmark. So I wanted a feature that would make it easier for me to add bookmarks to a VI. I want to be able to set the preferences of my bookmark. So we can go into the preferences, which is a tools menu item, and select what those favorite bookmarks actually are and what color the background should be and where their positioning should be. So again, an example of something that was a pain point for me was adding bookmarks. I was always, especially I use a Windows virtualized on a Mac, so half the time the hash key doesn't map properly and it's been replaced by ampersand or something like that. So I wanted a way to create bookmarks really quickly without even opening the VI if I didn't want to. So in the slides, you'll find information on project providers. Darren will tell you not to do it. But the information's there if you so wish. Consider it a rusty nail. It might implement the feature that you want, but you might have some painful experience along the way. So I've gone a little bit over time. Apologies for that. The final one, I just want to show really quickly. I noticed on the LabVIEW Ideas Exchange, it's quite an old post, but there was a post about having a tabbed IDE. So basically having a single LabVIEW window and then opening multiple block diagrams or multiple front panels in that window. I also noticed it actually featured in one of the early LabVIEW 8 beta releases, and it's got quite a lot of votes for it, but then never really happened. And somebody asked me how you can do it. Well, there's actually a little Windows tool available. It's around $10 from a company called Stardock. And what it allows you to do is to tab items that are related, so such as multiple windows that belong to the same application. So in this case, I've got two front panels and two block diagrams open. And what I can simply do is drag them over the top of each other and have a single LabVIEW window with multiple tabs. And it also gives you this nice little preview when you hover over them. So you could add something. I'm going to go ahead and add an error cluster to one of my front panels, move off that front panel. And then if I hover over the tab, I can actually see what is on that LabVIEW front panel. I find this particularly useful, not really when I'm on my full development machine where I've got a couple of monitors, but if I'm on a test system that has a very small embedded panel, or I'm traveling and I've got a small screen laptop, I find this can be quite useful for kind of managing my space a little bit better. So that's just another tool. Sadly, it's a paid for tool by another company, but if that's something that you like the look of, maybe go and try that out. They have a 30-day demo as well. So hopefully, at the end of all of that, and there's some more links in there as well. If you want to play with the example code, it's on GitHub. If you want to find out more about that project provider that I showed, there's a link there. It's on the LabVIEW Tools Network. If you want to keep in touch and tell me about some of the things you're building, you can find my email there or my LinkedIn. Hopefully that's given you kind of an idea of, well, there's this tool that I've been wanting to build for a long time, but I didn't know how it would work or how I could integrate it. Hopefully that's given you an idea of some of the hooks that are available to you in order to get those features built into LabVIEW so that you can be more productive as well. And I'm going to stop talking now because I've gone over time, and hopefully, Greg, do we have time for a few questions if there are any?
Yeah, I think we do. Any questions for Chris? Anybody used project templates before other than like a DQMH or the shell VIs that are included from like JKI State Machine? Yeah, Kenny, you use them? I just started using DQMH a little bit, still evaluating.
Okay. So yeah, you've got a bunch of productivity tools with that, right? You've got project templates, you've got items integrated into the tools menu to trigger various event creation. They've got help that is embedded in the help menu. So yeah, I mean, they're really plumbed into a lot of the different hooks that are available there. I think the main thing is, because it's scripting, anything's fair game, right? Anything that you can do with scripting could be integrated into those different hooks. I'm aware we really only have sort of like 30. I know I've gone over, but we only had like 30 minutes to discuss this. Darren has got a presentation about, very similar topic, where he goes especially into the scripting a lot more. And I've put a link to that presentation right at the beginning of mine. So go and dig that out. And it has a few more of the sort of the gotchas, the pitfalls, the things to be mindful of when implementing your scripting code. I was just hoping to kind of give you a flavor of, hey, if there's a feature you want to do, go build it yourself.
All right, really good stuff. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate your time.
No worries.